the current Minnesota Vikings roster is loaded with amazing talent, as we all know. Pro Bowl players, some players that even have gotten some All Pro love in the past few seasons. And you know, we can thank Rick Spielman for having a lot of these players on the team, right? But you start to kind of look at some of these top end players on this team, and they're all starting to get, you hate to say it because we've been watching these guys for years, love what they do on the field, but a few of them are starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. The cap numbers, since they're such good players, their cap numbers are starting to get up there a little bit. Obviously, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell coming in, kept the roster intact because they see this can be a competitive roster and they can win with this roster. But eventually, they might want to start cutting some savings as well as morphing it into more of what they feel would be what they want to see this roster look like. And as we've seen with free agency signings as well as this last draft, there's a lot of young, talented players creeping behind these veterans looking to take a spot. So I do think it is fair to say that there's a lot of players on this team that might be looking over their shoulder. Their time with, I hate to say it because we love a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
But their time as Minnesota Vikings, they might be coming to an end. And as soon as after this upcoming season, again, hate to say it, but with injuries some of these players have, like I said, cap hits, it's just, it's a weird time, like I said, a lot of competitive players. I mean, you can see that with obviously the Wilfs said they expect to compete this year, and every move we've made so far this offseason, you believe it. But man, it's just a weird time. What do you think?
Yeah. I do want to say just that, for the record, like most of these players that we're about to talk about, we would love for them to actually come in next year and prove themselves worthy of continue playing as a Minnesota Viking. There is concerns with them, whether it is aging or injuries, like Casey mentioned. But some of these guys, maybe they'll come in, have a really great season, and their veteran presence and their skills and stuff will be still extremely valuable to our team. So I want to mention that. But at the same time, like you said, there is players creeping over their shoulders, and there is injury concerns that do matter. And honestly, I mean, with this amount of talent on this team, in my opinion, I think we have a great amount of talent, especially after the draft, picking all these players that we in positions of need, players of positions of need. I think we have a lot of talent with new coaches and everything, offensive minded coaches. I just don't really think we have much room for an excuse for how well we do next year. And if it doesn't work out, this is where I think some of these players might come in questions. We might have to clear up space and all that stuff. So,
right. For sure. So anyway, we did, as he kind of alluded to, we picked 4 players to talk about that we do think are most likely the players who have a young player looking over, right behind him, ready to take their spot. And a lot of these guys, they do have cap numbers that are getting up there. Some of them do have injury concerns. So let's jump right in and let's take a look at some of these players.
Before we do that, I want to thank everybody for watching the GG Sport podcast of the Minnesota Vikings, where we endure heartbreak but always bleed purple. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, get notifications for more of our videos and all that good stuff. Let's start with the first player.
And this
a lot of these players, there's going to be, it's a hard pill to swallow, a lot of these players, because we do love them and we hope for the best, and I would love to see them on our team longer. But let's start with the first one, and that is
I feel like this is the most realistic if you're going to look at it. So Dalvin Cook, we all know about Dalvin Cook. The guy is an absolute stud when he's on the field. Looking at his career to this point, hasn't played a full season. Was drafted in 2017. First season played in 4 games. Second season played in 11. Third season played in 14. Fourth season 2020 played in 14. Last season played in 13. That's a lot. That's a lot of missed games, right? I mean, obviously, the guy is like I said, absolute stud. You look at some of his stats in the years past. 2020 obviously being his top season, 1,557 rushing yards, and I believe he had 361 receiving yards and 16 rushing touchdowns that year, and only 1 receiving touchdown. But when the guy's on the field, the guy's an absolute monster.
Yeah.
But it's just it's too difficult to look past those injuries, the games that he's missed, and looking at him in 2023. The cap hit of $14 million. If you cut him outright, just cut, not post June 1st or anything, you could save dead cap $6.2 million, but you save $7.8 million. And especially you look at the draft pick of Ty Chandler as well as Kenny sitting behind him as well. You start to see where there might be guys at Kwesi and O'Connell looking at like these guys might be more fit for this team at a much cheaper price.
So Dalvin Cook is an example to me as is someone that does kind of come to the injuries and that there is so much people behind him. So next year, we won't have Madison probably. I can't imagine with all this depth we have. It's already going to be kind of interesting to see how we work it in this year. Kine is way too valuable as a kick returner at this point for him to not make a team or anything like that. So he's kind of like, he's like probably the most steady guy on our running back roster, honestly, just because he has that role and he does so well at it. Ty Chandler, we don't know anything about, or we don't know how his skills and everything's going to translate into the NFL yet. We don't know how good he's going to be. It still is a position that not everybody succeeds at when coming in. So we don't really know if he'll be that guy or whatever.
Right.
But I do want to say is like, I think, when healthy, Dalvin Cook still has more than enough left in the tank, and he does have tons of skill. And we've mentioned before, besides the injuries, he's at least a top 5. I would easily say top 3 running back in the league. So that's the hard part about it. The cap space doesn't really bother me too much, but when you add the injuries into it and at the same time, you do know that there is running backs and a lot of teams do it where they kind of do have that like committee thing, and it does work to some extent. I would rather have like our feature back that's just can do it all, but it is a little concern. I think when the injuries is a little bit concerning, and if we go into next season and he does have that injury problem again, like he has before, if it really sets our team back and sets him back, I think we will be questioning what should we do going forward. Right. That being said, if he does come in and he ends up not having much of an injury problem and has a very successful season like he says he's going to with this new number, I'd definitely say don't cut him, and I could see him definitely being on here next year. And even, he has a good couple of years left. Do you have an age on that? How old is he? He's got to be 28?
28, yep.
28. He's got a couple of years before that, the big 30,
Yeah.
So
But
so it's just the injuries thing. But yeah, it's people creeping behind him, and it is the injury thing. And in the NFL, we all know like running backs kind of can be replaced.
Right. And that's to me why I disagree. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here. The cap number.
You can't disagree with me.
The cap number worries me. You see, as you see now, what's the biggest thing we've seen this offseason? Receivers making crazy money, which is showing you the NFL is going to much more of a passing league, and people have been saying it for years, the running back position. And that's why running backs almost want their own contract scale, like their own rookie, like bigger rookie contracts, because they know a lot of them do not get huge second contracts. The only reason Cook got one is because he was in that offense when Spielman gave him the money, where he was like the feature guy. He was the focal point of the offense. That's changing now. It's Justin Jefferson. And you look at a guy like Ty Chandler, big thing pops out to him. You see a lot of highlight catches from Ty Chandler. And looking at Kevin O'Connell and coming from the Rams, they use their running backs a lot as pass catchers. And I know you were kind of talking like maybe we just haven't seen that from Dalvin. Maybe with the Zimmer offense, we didn't get to see a lot of pass catcher Dalvin Cook, because he's shown he can catch a ball out in space and make people miss. But I feel like that's a strength of Ty Chandler. And with Ty Chandler, you're getting a huge pay cut from a fifth round running back, as opposed to Dalvin Cook, who's worth fourth, who's being paid $14 million next year. So with me, I think Dalvin Cook is the easiest cut candidate on this team. And I hate to say it, because like you said, I do love Dalvin and the guy's a monster. Yeah. But the injuries concern you, and the pay is just it's getting kind of unruly.
It is a lot for running back. I do want to say though, I do think it's not just throwing the ball out to Dalvin Cook and having him miss. I think something that we didn't see a lot in Zimmer's offenses are obviously he had other offensive coordinators, but just it seems very Zimmer-like. But anyways, is you just don't see him line up and go and have like routes. Like you'll see this with like Aaron Jones or something with Aaron Rodgers. He'll go and run routes. These are the kind of highlight catches we see from Ty Chandler in college. And there's a couple Dalvin Cook did have last year, and it's a skill set that I actually think Dalvin Cook has, and we just never utilized it. And I am interested to see if I think Dalvin Cook could be a better receiving running back than he gets credit for. And we might see that this year. We might not see that this year. And that is the salary cap thing is concerning, though I would probably say a healthy running back, I think, especially based on how much they actually do make and how much production they can and how much value they can actually bring to a team, is, I mean, I think it can be a steal. Like Christian McCaffrey's best season when he was healthy, like he was one of the best players in the entire league. Obviously we can say a lot about Adrian Peterson in 2012. Those are guys that, they're getting paid, 10 million's a lot for a running back, but those guys actually probably benefit your team more than a guy like Justin Jefferson in the long run. Obviously, we're probably not going to be running through the running back as much anymore. But I do think I am a person on the side of, I think running backs get undervalued especially from a financial, for how much they can put in because people replace them so easily and stuff like that. Like I feel it for the running backs, but that's how it is. That's just how the league works. That's just how much money they're going to make no matter what. That's just what it is. And if you pay a running back $14 million, you're way overpaying them, even though you can pay a receiver $30 million and then you're not. But so I don't know. It kind of confuses me on that part. I guess I think the biggest thing is I just think, Dalvin Cook's a one in a kind running back. He's not someone that's going to come in and someone's going to fill his shoes. I think we've been very spoiled with our running backs as Viking fans in the last, 15 years, Adrian Peterson, Dalvin Cook. And I think could be an area where we end up, going with guys that aren't as good. And then we're going to be stuck in a situation where we're hoping to find that next running back. So maybe I'm wrong. I could definitely be wrong. But
my last point is, like, you look, Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers, those aren't really, big time names, and the Rams took those guys and won a Super Bowl. So, I mean, they're both good running backs. It is a fair point. You don't need top talent running backs to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
They help, but not always the case. But
especially
anyway, it'll be interesting.
Football these days.
It'll be super interesting to see what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook after this season. So
right.
We'll see. Man, player number 2. This one hurts my heart. Minnesota's own Adam Thielen. So you look at a guy like Adam Thielen, and again, Adam Thielen is, Minnesota Wonder Boy, small town kid. We all know the story. Made it to the league. Basically, He has a ton of talent, but basically made it to the league based off hard work.
He was about to sell like dental equipment. Yeah, about to sell dental equipment before he got the call.
Hard, grinded, worked his way from the practice squad to special teams to being, a top 25 receiver in the NFL. Let's be honest. 20, the guy's an absolute stud. He catches everything thrown at him. All he does is catch touchdowns. Let's be honest. The guy's a red zone machine. But you look at him over the past 2 seasons. Last year, missed 6 games. Did he miss any games last year? Yeah, he missed 4 games last year. Year before that, missed a game. Year before that, only played in 10. Before then, he was pretty healthy. 2016, he missed a few games, but overall, you look at him, he's starting to become a question too. I think he had a hamstring strain a couple years ago, the ankle injury last year. So you hate to say it, he's 31 years old now. He's getting a little bit long in the tooth. Still puts out production when he's on the field. Obviously, as we've seen with his touchdowns, what did he have the last 2 years? Last year, last year he had 10 touchdowns. The year before he had 14. So the guy still puts up numbers. But then you start to look back at the numbers a little bit. Next year, his cap number is $21.6 million. You can if you straight up cut him, you can save $14 million. So you see how it could happen. I think next year. Sorry, excuse me. Next year you save $6.4 million. If you cut him in 2024, you can save $14 million. But either way you look at that, there's way to save money with Adam Thielen. Plus, as we talk about guys behind him, there's a lot of guys behind him that could fill his shoes. So again, I'd hate to see it happen because I do love the guy. You love the story. You love the hometown kid. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him too.
Yeah, I do want to mention right away is we do need to create cap space for another very important receiver that we actually just mentioned, Dalvin Cook side, is it is going to be Justin Jefferson, time to pay Justin Jefferson, and it is not going to be cheap. So we're going to have to figure out, there's going to be some cap situations that we're going to have to deal with, whether we like it or not, like every year, it seems like, probably.
And the Vikings
continue that way, but.
And the Vikings have been super lucky to be able to keep the same core intact since
Yeah, I don't even know
basically
how they do it.
2015, 2016. It's nuts. And we're starting, like, unfortunately, you are starting to see what's going on now
Right.
with the cuts that are
And
potentially going to come in the next couple of years.
yeah, and yeah, like you said, the injury concern thing is still a thing. It's still that like matters. What he's 32,
31 as of
31.
right
So
now.
he's
31 and a
becoming
half.
32. Wide receivers can last longer than running backs, stuff like that.
True.
And I still think he does have a lot
Oh,
left in the
yeah.
tank. And I think he's going to have a good It depends on how great of a season he has and how good of a season KJ Osborne has as well. Because obviously, if KJ Osborne, if it comes down to the situation where we're like, I think KJ Osborne can take that wide receiver 2 spot, then we might not want to be paying Adam Thielen that much money. It could be that situation.
Right.
Plus, we have ISM if he takes a step forward. And Naylor, we got
And
Obese
don't
Johnson.
forget about BC. I'm excited to see what BC's going to do in his return. He's not going to be a number 2 receiver, maybe even not
Right.
a number 3 receiver, but he's a steady number 4.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I honestly think that a lot of fans thought for sure actually that it was time to pick a receiver to replace Thielen in the long term this year. There's a lot of people who were thinking that even at pick 12 with all the wide receivers that were there. So I think next year it's going to be a priority to pick a receiver because he is going to be 32 and he's going to be aging, and we're going to want more depth at wide receiver now. But if he has a lights out year and he doesn't have those injury concerns, I could see him still sticking on, especially for the year after, since we know that his cap space, we'd actually save more money if we even allowed him on, or if we kept him for one extra year. But would it still be a 21 cap hit next year then? But
For
we'd only
Thielen?
save 6 million
Okay, 19.96 or 19.9 million next year
next
is his
year.
cap number. If we cut him, we would save
Save 6 million.
6.4. So it would make more sense to cut him in
But
2024 after
yeah,
2023 if you're going to do that.
but
But
19
also,
million is still a ton of money.
it is
Even
exactly, and that's where you start to worry a little bit. See, I don't know, it's weird. I mean, looking on over the cap, if they do a post June 1st cut, then it's only 6.5 million against the cap, and you save 13.4. So
yeah. So
it's
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's and again, like you said, I think it all depends on how this season goes. So
Yeah, pretty much with all these players, of course, it's going to
right,
depend on. But that's the thing is, it matters how for these players we're talking about. It just matters how they play compared to other players, I guess, on our roster.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
if they do not have a good season, or if they just have an injury-ridden season, then they're going to question what should we do with these guys. If they're,
Right,
we don't want to keep paying these players that keep getting injured and stuff when we feel like we might have something that could still get some of the job done at least behind them. So that's like the whole point of this video is what players kind of have to play well this year. Otherwise, they could just be in the hot seat.
right, for sure. So I mean, I think those two kind of take care of the ones that you're concerned about injury wise. So
Yeah,
the next one,
this one hurts my soul.
the next one hurts as well. But this next one's more about money and yeah, God, this hurts. This one's more about money and age when you look at a guy like Harrison Smith. Obviously, not a ton of injury concerns. Dude hasn't missed a ton of games due to injury. Missed some games with COVID, or a game with COVID last year, but overall, this guy plays every week. He puts his top-notch performance on the field. You kind of see, you saw the flashy stats drop a little bit in the last couple of years, but that's because you got to look at the cornerback play in front of him and the edge and the rush play as well. I think he's out there trying to make up for a lot of mistakes, and sometimes it puts him in bad situations. But with Harrison Smith, it is just that cap number. We signed with that extension. His cap number in 2023 is going to be $19.2 million. If you straight out just cut him, it's 11.7 dead, but you save 7.4 against the cap. So, again, I hate to say that I could see it happening, but if you really look at it, and especially with the draft pick of Lewis Cine, who is kind of the same type of safety as Harrison Smith is. I mean, you would love to say, let's watch those two the next 2 or 3 years, just nail people, just nail drivers, just beat down on opposing offenses, but
on Aaron Rodgers and the
yeah,
Packers.
that too. But I almost, like, we talk about it in our
Christian
draft
Watson
coverage videos, that you kind of see a lot of these players potentially taking over for vets, and you might see a Lewis Cine Cam Bynum combo down the road and draft a backup for them, or use some guy on the roster. But
Right.
Again, I hate to say it, but with the money the way it is and his age, I could easily see Harrison Smith being done with the Vikings after this season.
Yeah. I can see. I think it does depend on how well he does. So I think the biggest thing was like what you mentioned with Scene and then Bynum. If I mentioned this before, if Bynum wants to be the greatest player of all time, he's gonna have to start by leapfrogging Harrison Smith. And that's what it's another thing, in my opinion, where it will come down to next year. I mean, if Harrison Smith plays at a Pro Bowl level, especially since our pass rush, as long as injuries don't kill us, our pass rush should be far better than last year, and our cornerback should be a lot better. Downser's getting better. I'm only getting better. And then obviously we got Booth and Evans, and we're just looking better. And then obviously we signed Patrick Peterson. But so, I mean, we might see a Pro Bowl level. If we see a Pro Bowl level out of him and we don't see that, like, Scene's going to be a rookie. So you got to cut him a little bit of slack. We can't expect him to come in and be like a Pro Bowl safety right away. And Bynum's only in his second year with just a little bit of play, but he played fantastic when he got the opportunity last year. So I think a lot of it will come down to that. Like, I don't know if Harrison Smith might be too talented and have too much left in the tank for us to let him go next year and be like, all right, I feel like we're good with the safeties we do have in Scene and Bynum, just because we're talking about a guy who's lit, in my opinion, no biased, has been the best safety in the league since he's came into it.
I would agree with that as well. But also you do got to, like you said though, you got to look Lewis Scene as a rookie, but maybe he's going to have a season like this guy in 2012 where he comes out and just flashes right off the page. And you're like, damn.
And you might be right. If that does happen and Bynum also shows similar progress, that's when I would be more. And then unless Harrison Smith also took a big back step and it was obvious he's slowing down. But if he has like a very good, like a Pro Bowl, if he's easily looked at as our best safety going into the next year after that, and we didn't really get to see a big enough step out of Scene, or because if we have, like, what if Bynum isn't as good as we were hoping or something like that, and Scene does step up, but then now we're going to have to fill that free safety or whatever. So a lot of it will come down to how it is, but at the very least, there's a couple talented players looking over his shoulder. So
right, for sure. All right, moving on to the last one. Before you switch the slide over, let's just say I personally, me and Jamie have gone back and forth on this. I don't see this being a 2023 replacement. I see it being in 2023. You might see the seeds start to be planted for supplanting this man come 2024, in my opinion. I don't see any chance.
You might see that in 2023 draft, though.
Right, that too. But I don't foresee him not being on the team in 2023. You can go ahead and flip it right over to him.
I'll say this. Yeah, I want to say this, that I like it. It would be, it could be impossible for us to do this, but the reason why we put, like, impossible for us to not have him on the roster next year. But the reason why I put him on this list is because out of every player on this list, I think he has the most to prove, not just on this list, but on our entire team. This is the year to prove, because everything, in my opinion, is aligned for his success. And if it doesn't happen, there's going to be some big questions. And that guy's is Captain Kirk Cousins.
Yep. And I definitely agree with that, because we've seen the fan base is so split on this guy. It's either you love him or you hate him. Some people are right in between. They can see both sides of the argument. But you're right. I mean, one side's going to be right and one side's going to be wrong. And I'm really curious to see what it is. This team is, I mean, if the offensive line shapes up at least a little bit, this team is exactly the type of team everybody says Kirk Cousins needs. You got the offensive weaponry. You got Irv, which we haven't even talked about. Irv Smith. This is another reason why Adam Thielen might be out the door. If he ends up picking it up, we have to pay him too. Who really knows? But he's got Irv Smith. He's got the running backs. We talked about Dalvin, Ty Chandler, and Kene. He's got a defense that is much improved from last year. Just on paper, of course, we don't know for sure. But yeah, he's got a lot to go out and prove. And in the draft, and who knows? Maybe they didn't see any value in any of these quarterbacks, but they didn't take anybody. So maybe they think the potential heir apparent to Kirk Cousins is already on the roster in one I'm kidding. In one Thielen Moss.
I was like, wait, what?
But at the end of the day, you never know. Maybe they brought in Gerard Johnson, former Texas A&M quarterback. Kellen Mond broke some of him and Johnny Manziel's records at Texas A&M as well. So maybe maybe they think that they can get something out of him, and at least give 1 year. If not, you draft a guy. But who knows? They might think they already have the potential replacement on the roster. Give him 2 years to learn the offense. Boom, there you go.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what it's going to happen. That's going to be the biggest deciding factor, I think, is depending on how well he plays. And I guess and how we feel about Kellen Mond is if we draft a quarterback high next year. If Kirk Cousins plays lights out and we go deep into playoffs, yeah, I mean, there's a chance that Kirk Cousins could play so well that we just make him our quarterback of the future still, even though it's kind of been going on. But from my opinion so far, he hasn't been worth the money. I mean, you're paying someone. Obviously, his contract is looking kind of better and better as all these other quarterbacks are making more and more money, but it doesn't mean his contract has been worth it because, in my opinion, bringing in a guy like him, we brought him in to expect to kind of take us over a hump and win more games. We've only been to playoffs once. We won one playoff game, and that's just not enough for me. So and I did want to mention the offensive line too, because Brian O'Neill, Ezra Cleveland, Darisaw, they're all young and have an extra year of experience. They should come back better than the year before. And we do have a lot of competition and bodies for that other right guard spot. And then, yeah, maybe once we get Treader, we'll look good in that center position. But all I'm saying is that our offensive line should be better than it is last year too. This is going to the offensive talent or whatever. I just think as a quarterback, as a captain of this team, if we don't make playoffs, or if he I know everybody talks about his stats and stuff like that, but I don't care about the stats. If we don't make playoffs or even go a little bit deep, at least a little bit deep in playoffs, at least win the first round or something like that. In my opinion, Cousins should be on the hot seat. We might not have much, much flexibility with him. But I think that's the biggest thing that's when we're like, do we need to go get a quarterback early in the next year's draft? And then obviously, we can have Kirk Cousins for one more year after that or whatever we do. But I do think it is such an important year for him because I think he has everything he has. This is, we can blame all the conservative playing and everything on Zimmer last year. And if Cousins comes into this year and we're seeing more of that conservative play, then we'll know that it wasn't only on Zimmer, that Cousins did have some of it, because I'm not convinced that Cousins also doesn't try to be a little bit too conservative. But at the same time, I could be completely wrong with that. And I'm open. I want him to succeed and I want him to be that quarterback. So let's hope he is. But in my opinion, I think this is a big season for him to kind of prove himself. I think this is like his proving season, in my opinion.
I do want to throw in the disclaimer, though. I mean, yes, if we don't go far in the playoffs, it might be partially his fault, but you also do need to wait until the time comes and see how the defense played, see how the offensive line played. Because obviously, if our defense doing what it did last year and giving up points at the end of the half, and those could be added on to Kirk's wins, because depending how you feel about quarterback or wins being a quarterback stat, those arguments are always very fascinating because really you don't know, are they a quarterback stat or are they not? They're given to the quarterback. But the quarterback doesn't always have a say in if they win or not. Defense and offensive line play and skill players are a big part of that. We have to see how this defense meshes around him. If he's out there slinging it like he did last year and the defense still sucks and we don't make the playoffs, then you can't necessarily say this was a failure on Kirk Cousins. Yeah. You can say this was a team failure again, which puts us right back in the same spot, talking about all this all over again for a whole other offseason. But who really knows?
Right. Yeah. For me, I think what I need to be convinced is I just need him to see him step up in the big games and win those really important games. We talked about it before last year. In the stretch of games we needed to win to try to make playoffs was his worst statistically and just in general, his worst stretch of the season. And those are the stretches that franchise quarterbacks usually step up and win those games, because it wasn't like our situation was any different than those other games beforehand. And even in not even just that year, I mean, every other year, this past year was impressive because we got to see him do the 2-minute drill and score touchdowns. That's something we didn't really see from him a lot in those other prior years with us. So there's just stuff to prove. I don't put everything on the quarterback, but there's no question at all that of any position, it's that contributes to that the most, it is the quarterback. And there is quarterbacks out there that I feel like doesn't matter how bad their team is, they'll sneak a team into playoffs. But not everyone. You know, we saw Matt Stafford, but I don't know if Matt Stafford's 100% that guy that just carries teams like that. Maybe
Who really
guys
knows?
like Tom Brady and Patrick. I mean, we're reaching here, but Patrick Mahomes, I just feel like
I can see all the comments is because you guys talk about wins being a quarterback stat, and yes, just go find the next Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. It's easy. Those comments are
it.
going to come. I expect it, but hey, it
That's
is
all
what
right.
it is. At the
We
end of
just
the day,
want a good
all I
court.
want
We
to
want a
see,
franchise quarterback. And if that's Cousins, great. But we want a guy that can go like care when everything else isn't going good. At least he steps up and helps your team win. Instead of like when you really need him to step up, he doesn't really do that stepping up, I guess.
I personally think he's going to have one of the better seasons we've seen from
He
Kirk
should.
Cousins
I expect
because of
his best
everything
season.
on the team. But anyway, imagine that another video
win-wise.
turning into a Kirk Cousins video because that's fun. Kirk Cousins is such a polarizing figure. It's amazing. And the dude's fun. Let's be honest. I bet you he hears all the stuff. He enjoys it. He's got the big bag.
I hope he does. I hope he hears anything anybody says.
He leans right into
proves
all of
everybody wrong next year.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so if you like the video, hit the like button. Let us know. We appreciate that a lot. Let us know in the comments what you think of our list. Let us know if you think we're wrong, right? If there's any players we missed who you think might be surprising cuts, also let us know that down in the comments. If you want to check out some of our other videos, click the links right up here. Most importantly, do not forget, subscribe to GG Sports Podcast. Catch all of our content through the rest of the offseason, into camp, and into next season. And we will see you guys in the next episode of the podcast.
SKOL Vikes.